Today's topic is how to learn from your own favorite authors. If you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips to help you mine those favorite authors for inspiration for your own writing. Well, if you're a writer of any sort and aspire to publishing in particular, you are also a reader. Many people have said this before, I've said this before, and William Faulkner famously said this about writers and reading. Read, read, read. Read everything, trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it. Just like a carpenter who works as an apprentice and studies the master, read, you'll absorb it. And who can really argue with William Faulkner? And he's not the only very famous, very successful writer who has said this. Today I'm interested in exploring how we as writers can look at our own favorite authors and mine those books for little gems of inspiration for our own writing. But let's be clear about this. I'm not talking about copying your favorite authors or copying any other authors for that matter. I'm talking about not just reading for entertainment or information in nonfiction writers. I'm talking about looking at those books as inspiration and looking at them for ideas about how we can all get better at our own writing. And it doesn't matter what kind of writing you do, whether it's long form, short form, fiction, nonfiction, online writing, any of the above, all of the above. You can still learn something from your favorite authors that will improve whatever style of writing it is that you do on a regular basis. My suggestion to you is that you first make a list of your favorite books. What were the favorite 5 books that you've read in your entire life? If I think back, my favorite book, top of the list, is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And that book was published in 1938, and there's still much to be learned from a story that was written in 1938. Select one of those books from your list, read it again, then let's start mining that book for gems that you can use to inspire your writing. Here are my 5 tips. Tip number 1, read descriptive passages aloud to hear the style of the writing. Well, I don't know about you, but when I do some reading, I'm usually pretty silent. We all tend to read with our eyes rather than with our ears. Then we allow our brains to interpret what we've read. But are we really listening to the words? I suggest to you that we don't hear the words the same on the page when we read silently as we do when we read out loud. We hear different things when we read it out loud. Read out loud and pay attention. You're listening for things like the cadence of the words. You're listening for the beats of the story. The rhythm of what you hear will match the story if it's a good one. Does your writing do that? Tip number 2, read some dialogue aloud so that you can hear characters' voices. Every character in any book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, when you're interviewing someone, every character has his or her own voice. And the question is, can you hear the subtle differences when one character is speaking versus when another one is speaking? And reading out loud really helps you with this. In addition, when you read dialogue out loud, it allows you to listen to whether or not it sounds natural. Dialogue should sound natural, but I'm not talking about dialect. I'm just talking about how the characters speak. Tip number 3, observe the paragraphs. After you've read a few pages, go back and look at the paragraphs. And here are some things that you should be looking for. How does a strong topic sentence sound? How has the writer transitioned from one paragraph to another? How long are the paragraphs? Is each paragraph coherent in that it sticks to the topic presented in the topic sentence? And once you've done that, make a few notes about this that you can go back and refer to for your own writing. Tip number 4 is observe the scenes. Every scene in a book has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and its purpose is to move the story forward in one way or another. One of the interesting things about each individual scene is that each good scene should contain elements of the overall story. Elements like these: situation, character, setting, plot. And of course, many of the scenes will contain dialogue. Examine how each scene that you're reading uses these elements, and then figure out how this scene that you're reading moves the action forward. And ask yourself a few questions. Are there any aspects of the way this favorite writer of yours creates scenes and constructs scenes that could help you in scene construction in your own writing? Do all your scenes have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Is each individual scene in your own writing essential to the story, or is it just filler? Any scene that you think is just filler should be deleted in its entirety. Tip number 5, read the first page of the book and then read the last page of the book. Now, if this is a book that you've loved, you were probably drawn into it right from the beginning. In that case, it would be worthwhile having a look at that beginning to see what exactly it was about the start of that story that drew you in. Was it a character? Was it a setting? Was it some kind of a triggering event that started the action very quickly, usually on the first page in certain kinds of books, sometimes the first paragraph? Then read the last page or page and a half. Has the writer left you, as the reader, satisfied? What was it about that ending that made you satisfied or dissatisfied? And if you were dissatisfied, why is this one of your favorite books? Might be important to understand what that dissatisfaction really means, and what can you learn about the way that book has ended that can help you in crafting endings for your own books. Writing is a craft that involves the development of skills, and those skills are honed over time and through practice. So the purpose of looking at other people's writing is not so that you can emulate them. It's not so that you can make your writing sound like theirs. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be derivative. But you can learn from some of the fundamental building blocks of writing that are underlying the writing in your favorite books. Now let's all go find a new favorite book. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat, and maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills, 5 tips at a time.